You know, when you think about the great Greek philosophers, two names always jump out: Plato and Aristotle. They're like the titans of thought. But here's the thing a lot of people forget. They weren't just peers. Aristotle was actually Plato's student. And this is where it gets really interesting, because while Plato gave us this amazing philosophy of wonder, always looking up to the heavens, Aristotle, he gave us a philosophy of science. He was determined to explain the world that was right here, right in front of us. So, okay, let's dive into this master-student showdown and see how Aristotle basically rebuilt the entire universe from the ground up.
So if you've ever seen that famous painting by Raphael, The School of Athens, you've seen this whole debate captured in a single image. It's incredible. Right in the center, you've got Plato, and he's pointing up. He's all about that perfect, eternal world of ideas, what he called the forms. But right next to him is Aristotle, and what's he doing? He's gesturing down, with his palm flat towards the earth. It's like he's saying, whoa, hold on a minute. The reality we actually need to understand, it's right here. Look, Aristotle really admired his teacher's big ideas, but he felt that all of Plato's, let's call them transcendental excesses, just made it impossible to do any real practical science.
All right, so before we can really appreciate just how genius Aristotle's solution was, we have to get a handle on the problem he was wrestling with. And that problem really was Plato's amazing but, well, deeply flawed theory of forms. And here's the fascinating part. Aristotle actually loved the core of Plato's idea. See, Plato argued that we can only have true, solid knowledge of things that are eternal and unchanging. These perfect blueprints or forms. I mean, think about it. The chair you might be sitting on right now, it's going to break down someday. But the idea of chairness, that perfect form, that's forever. Aristotle thought this was a brilliant insight. The problem for him wasn't the concept of forms, it was where Plato decided to put them. So this was Aristotle's first huge critique. He's like, okay, hang on. If the perfect blueprint for a boy and the perfect blueprint for a man are two totally separate, unchanging forms off in some other reality, how does a boy ever become a man? How does that change happen? All of a sudden, Plato's theory makes explaining change, you know, the most basic, fundamental thing we see happening all around us, pretty much impossible.
And that brings us to his second big problem with Plato's idea. By creating this whole separate world of forms, Plato basically doubled everything in the entire universe. For every single thing you see, there's the thing itself, and then there's its perfect form somewhere else. Aristotle had a great name for this. He called it a metaphysical slum. It's just messy, it's cluttered, and it completely violates a key principle of good science. Keep it simple. You don't want a bunch of extra parts in the machine that aren't actually doing anything.
So what does a genius do when faced with a broken universe? Well, before Aristotle could even start to fix Plato's model, he realized he needed a completely new set of tools. He needed a solid, rigorous way to explain how anything, literally anything, comes to be. He called them the four principles of explanation, but today we know them as the four causes.
Okay, so let's break this down with a simple example. Let's say we want to explain a statue. To really explain it, Aristotle says you need all four answers. First, the material cause. What's it made of? Well, it's made of marble. Easy enough. Second, the efficient cause. Who or what made it? That'd be the sculptor who did all the chiseling. Third, the formal cause. What's the blueprint, the idea or essence? That's the shape of the statue that was in the sculptor's mind. And finally, and this is the big one, the final cause. What's its purpose? Why was it made? Maybe to decorate a temple. For Aristotle, if you don't have all four of those answers, your explanation is incomplete.
Now that fourth one, the final cause, or telos as he called it, this is probably Aristotle's most powerful and honestly most unique idea. It's like the ultimate why question. You know that old joke, why did the chicken cross the road? The answer, to get to the other side, that's its purpose. That is the final cause. And once you have that purpose, the explanation is complete. The buck stops there. You don't have to keep asking why forever. This single idea, that everything has an innate purpose, is the absolute key to unlocking his entire system.
All right, so now Aristotle is armed with his brand new toolkit. He's ready to go in and finally clean up that metaphysical slum that Plato built. And his solution, man, it's so simple, so elegant, but so profound that it would literally reshape all of Western thought.
Here it is. This is the masterstroke. He takes Plato's forms down from the heavens and puts them right inside of physical things. He comes up with this idea called hylomorphism. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It just means that every single substance is a combination of its matter, the Greek word is hyle, and its form, the Greek word is morphe. So the form isn't floating around out there somewhere. It's the actual internal organizing principle of the thing itself. It's its blueprint built right in. And this just brilliantly shows you the scientific mind at work. With this one simple move, boom, he's cleaned up the slum. There are no more doubles, no more cluttered, separate realities. He's created an explanation that has the fewest moving parts possible. And that's a principle that scientists, centuries and centuries later, would give a name to, Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is almost always the best.
Okay, so he's cleaned up all the metaphysical clutter. That's a huge step. But what about the other massive problem we talked about? How does this new model, with the forms now inside things, finally explain change?
This is where Aristotle introduces another absolutely brilliant concept. He says, look, there's a middle ground between something not existing at all and something existing fully. He calls this potentia, or what we call potentiality. Think about an acorn. An acorn isn't an oak tree right now, obviously, but it's not just a random pebble either. It is potentially an oak tree. That future possibility is baked right into its internal form, its blueprint.
And what's the end point of that potential? Well, that's what he calls actuality. The huge, fully grown oak tree is the actuality of that little acorn. A grown man is the actuality of the boy. So here's the crucial insight. Change is nothing more than the process of a thing moving from its potentiality to its actuality. And what guides that process? Its own internal form.
And just like that, the paradox that stumped Plato is gone. It disappears. Change is no longer some magical, impossible leap from one thing to another. No, it's just the natural, predictable fulfillment of a potential that was already built in from the very beginning. With these ideas, Aristotle gave us a common sense and really a scientific framework for understanding the dynamic, changing world we actually experience every single day.
So, now that he's solved these core problems of forms and change, let's zoom out. Because using these brand new tools, Aristotle goes on to build this absolutely breathtaking picture of the entire cosmos, a universe where everything is driven by purpose.
He pictured all of reality arranged in this great hierarchy, what's often called the scale of being. So way down at the bottom, you have what he called prime matter, just pure formless potential. But as you move up the scale, things get more form, more complexity, and more actuality. You get to inorganic matter, then plants with their nutritive soul, then animals with a sensitive soul, and then us, humans, with a rational soul. Each level, as you go up, has more being, you could say, more reality than the one below.
And then, at the very, very top of this scale, sits God. He calls it the unmoved mover. But listen, this is really important. This isn't a creator God like in many religions who actively builds the world. No, this is a being of pure thought, pure actuality. It has zero potential left to fulfill, so it doesn't act on the universe by pushing it around. Instead, it moves the entire universe by being the ultimate final cause. It's like everything in the cosmos is striving towards its perfection, drawn to it like it's the ultimate object of desire.
So, a perfect being of pure thought. What does it think about all day? Well, Aristotle's logic forces him into this really strange but memorable conclusion. A perfect being can only think about the most perfect thing that exists, right? And what's that? Well, it's itself. So, as one philosopher memorably put it, it turns out Aristotle's God is kind of narcissistic. He just spends all of eternity thinking about himself, about his own perfection. He can't think about us or the messy world because that would imply imperfection. It would imply change, and he's pure actuality. So in the end, Aristotle leaves us with this incredible, grand, teleological vision of the universe. A cosmos where everything, from a simple rock falling to the ground, to a tree growing towards the sun, to the stars moving across the sky, is striving to fulfill its own unique inner purpose. And everything is being pulled, drawn toward an ultimate state of perfection. Which, of course, leaves us with one final and really profound question to think about. If we live in a universe that's built on purpose, what does that mean for our purpose?